Okay, thanks everyone for waiting. We're gonna start off the panel. This is the Gap Year panel for the Emory Pre-Health Advising Office. For those who aren't familiar, the Emory Pre-Health Advising Office serves as a resource for undergraduates to utilize within their 4 years, whether you're in pre-med, pre-nursing, pre-dent. Please come to the office. We are located at B. Jones. And yeah, and if you guys can scan the QR or click on the link that I provided in the chat for attendance, that would be really helpful for us. Okay.
And then just to introduce ourselves really quickly, my name is Spandana. I'm a current junior and I'm on the pre-dental track here at Emory, and I am also in the pre-health advising office along with Andrea.
Yes, and I'm a senior nursing student, also a peer mentor at the pre-health advising office.
Hello, everybody. I'm a junior on the PPA track and also with the PHA office.
Okay, so the Emory Pre-Health Advising Gap Year Panel aims to provide students with insights into the diverse opportunities and benefits of taking a gap year before pursuing graduate or professional school, featuring open remarks from Dr. Wallenstein and real-world experiences shared by panelists. We hope to empower our students to make informed decisions about their pre-health journeys. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Wallenstein. I'm just going to read like a little bit of your bio before we start off. Dr. Wallenstein's primary academic interest is the professional and career development of medical trainees and academic physicians. He has held multiple leadership roles within undergraduate medical education at Emory and works with pre-health college students through his role as the lead physician advisor in the Emory Pre-Health Advising Office. He provides career and promotion mentorship for junior and mid-career faculty within the Department of Emergency Medicine, where he serves as associate chair of the Appointments, Promotion, and Tenure Committee. He has served on numerous School of Medicine committees, including the Executive Curriculum Committee, Admissions Committee, and Faculty Committee on Appointments and Promotions. Thank you once again for joining us.
Sure. Thank you for that nice introduction. Thank you for having me. This is a topic that I would say, in recent months in particular, I've given a lot of thought to. As I'd say in the last, since this past semester started, in my individual meeting with students, the I'd say the most common question I get, or at least the most common topic, particularly recently, has been on the topic of gap years. So much so that I've thought of sort of actually creating a session on gap years, and I was really happy to hear that the peer mentors were ahead of me in this. I still I still may do a session later on next semester if there is an interest, but. I thought I would just offer again a couple of introductory remarks because I think the way you are approaching this panel and actually having a panel and giving a lot of information is really good. And I don't want to spend a lot of time, but I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes um, trying to give some insight onto the two most common questions I get about gap years. And those questions probably come as no surprise. The first one is, should I do a gap year? And then the second one is, what should I do during a gap year? Let me just give a little bit of a disclaimer that most of the questions I get are from students who are contemplating applying to medical school. And so the gap year is particularly before medical school. But I think the considerations, whether one is going to nursing school, which for many of you maybe part of college, but is not always part of college. Dental school, physician assistant, or any of the other health fields, I think the issues are relatively the same. Um, and as you can imagine, there is no easy or quick way to sort of give a universal answer to those two questions because the answers are are very individualized. And so I would never even attempt to give a one size fits all answer to either of those questions. But I just want to give some general thoughts on how you might think about it. Um, as for the first question, should I take a gap year? Um, Gap years certainly, while they have become considerably more common over the last 1 to 2 decades, you do not need to take a gap year. That said, there are many good reasons to at least consider taking a gap year. And in general, they fall into one of two categories. One is it allows you to decompress some of the requirements, some of the academic requirements from, let's say, the first 3 years of college to your entire 4 years of college. Things like the MCAT and some prerequisite courses that you might need to take to prepare for the MCAT or whatever the relevant entrance exam is. And by sort of doing that decompression, you might allow yourself to potentially have a little bit of a fuller college experience. That's of course not to say that you can't have a full college experience if you apply without a gap year. But again, that decompression, that extra time, may just give you a little more time, space, and energy to pursue other things that you might find difficult. The second major reason, or sort of category of reasons, is that if there is anything there's sort of anything on your bucket list, at least during your early adulthood, post-college years. If you think of sort of the career journey that you're on as a train that starts from now and ends, when you finish your training to be whatever it is that you want to be, your gap year is sort of the last chance to hop off the train and hop back on. Because once you start your graduate professional program, in general, there are no breaks. There are no breaks between medical or dental school, residency, fellowship training. And so you're talking about a period of, at sort of a minimum of 7 years to potentially 10 years or even longer, in which there really is no easy way to take a break and do something else that you're interested in. That's not entirely true. There are ways you can do another degree, you can do an MPH and other things, but by and large, this is sort of your opportunity to sort of take the time and do something that you're really interested in doing. And the second question as to what should I do, also doesn't have an easy answer. For most people, the honest truth is anything. A gap year is an opportunity for you to do something that you're really interested in doing, something that you think will be fun and interesting, something that is, I would say, practically easy or doable. And by that, I mean sort of largely financial, or from a financial sense, your gap year should be ideally financially neutral. You're not necessarily expecting to earn a lot during your gap year that you're going to save away towards your living expenses or other things during your professional schooling afterwards. But whatever savings and resources that you have for for professional school, for training in whatever healthcare field, you don't want to burn through that during your gap year. There were two questions that I sort of received to kind of give some insight on that are related to this. And that is, both of them sort of address strategy. What kind of strategy should I use in selecting my gap year experience to, um, to kind of, enhance my application? And the other question is, again, how can you strategically align your gap year experiences with long-term goals? And I would say, in the most gentle way possible, I don't think those are actually the best questions because by and large, for most students, there should not, the thought of strategy to maximize your chances of success really should not be a major driver in what you want to do with your gap year. There are, of course, exceptions. If there is something in your sort of something in your college career that is missing, if there's something in your portfolio that is missing, you haven't had the opportunity to be involved in research, you haven't had the opportunity to be involved in clinical activities or service, then you might want to use your gap year to sort of fill one of those holes. But for most people who have a relatively well-rounded set of experiences at Emory, there's not a lot of strategizing when it comes to maximizing your chances of success. One of the reasons, just to be real practical, is that most people who take a gap year take a single gap year. And that means when you apply that, I'm going to just use the medical school example for now. If you're applying to medical school in the summer after you finish Emory, you might just be starting your gap year experience. And so there's only so much you can write about it and incorporate it into your application. And if you're interviewing in the early fall or mid fall or even later, you'll be in sort of the beginning stages of your gap year experience. You might not have so much to show for it. And so by and large, I don't think medical schools, and again, I think this is applicable to all the health fields. I don't think any of the schools particularly care what you do during your gap year time, as long as it's something that you can demonstrate you are growing from personally and professionally, and ideally gaining some skills that are going to help you in the next stages of your education and your career. So again, it's not surprising that a lot of applicants do something with a gap year experience that is somehow related to healthcare. That could be biomedical research, that could be something in the clinical environment, like working as a medical assistant or shadowing. Um, but it doesn't have to be. There are students who do and applicants who do all sorts of things. There are applicants who teach. There are applicants who do who are involved in advocacy. There are applicants who do things that seemingly like random, like working as a ski instructor or surfing instructor, or other type of coach. And those experiences are honestly equally as valuable when you have sort of the health and the lives and the well-being of people in your hands as often you do if you're a coach or instructor of some sort, you are gaining really a lot of experiences that would be valuable in healthcare. So again, I can certainly think of examples of students I have had where their gap year experience mirrored really what they've always been passionate about. I have one student in particular that comes to mind that just graduated, who is now an OBGYN resident, has always been passionate about reproductive rights and reproductive health care. And it's not a surprise that she spent 2 or 3 years between college and medical school working with Planned Parenthood and other advocacy groups. And yes, that helped sort of shape her career interests. And if that happens, that's wonderful. But that's in general not the approach I would necessarily say is the most common when thinking about your gap year. So I wanted to keep it to 10 minutes. I've already spoken, I think, for about 11 or 12. I will try to stay on, and if there's time, if there's anything I can help with, offer some insight, but I'll leave it at that for now so you have time for everything else.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights as we begin tonight's Gap Year panel. Your guidance and support means so much to the pre-health community, and we'll get started. So next, we'll be introducing our panelists. A huge thank you to our panelists, starting off with Ryan. Ryan has an MPH. He graduated from his undergrad in the class of 2019 with a major in biochem and a minor in music. His career plans are, he has pursued the MPH in global health with the infectious disease concentration. We have Xiong Kim, class of 2024, major human health with sociology minor, with a career plan of working as an MA and is currently pursuing an MD in the application cycle. We have Emily, class of 2024, a bio major, currently in her accelerated Master of Public Health and Health Policy Management program at MPH at Rollins. And Anusha, class of 2024, with a major of human health, with a focus in epidemiology and a minor in MESAs, with the career plans of working as a clinical research coordinator and pursuing an MD as well. If you guys want to say something before we keep going, the next portion of the panel is kind of just an insight on what the gap year is, and then we'll get started with the questions. But yeah, if you guys want to add anything or introduce yourselves.
I just want to say thanks for having us tonight. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get started with the academic pursuits. So these are just some things that you guys can do during your gap year. For those who are unaware, there's pre-med, post-bac programs, which is a great way to strengthen your academic transcript. These programs are ideal if you need a little bit of help improving your GPA, completing some prereq courses, or gaining a more competitive academic standing for professional school applications. There's also a master program that offers a chance to specialize further in whatever field you're interested in. These can be local or abroad, which gives a little bit of flexibility and opportunities for very unique learning experiences. And it allows you to complete your studies in like a shorter time frame, like an accelerated program, and also standardized test preparation. So whether you're preparing for the MCAT, DAT, OAT, or the GRE, this is a great time. The gap year is a great time to focus on this test prep and study and perform at your best. Each of these options can help you grow academically and professionally while positioning you for success in your next steps. Another option that there is fellowships. These are very unique and fully funded experiences usually. They're typically 1 to 2 years long and allows you to engage in teaching, research, or studying in a variety of settings, most often internationally. A lot of fellowships are competitive, so it's crucial to plan ahead when you are applying for them during your senior year, presumably, of your undergrad career. Some examples are the Fulbright. So this offers opportunities to teach or research or study abroad. There's a lot of Emory undergraduates who do the Fulbright and get to teach English in a different country. It's a really fulfilling program, very gratifying experience, I would say. There's the Bobby Jones Scholarship, which is exclusive to Emory students and funds a year of study at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and the Rhodes Scholarship, which supports postgrad study at the University of Oxford. And for more information, you should definitely visit the Emory National Scholarship and Fellowship website. You can enroll into the Canvas course, and they'll give like announcements, whether it's like for the Fulbright Boot Camp, which they help you kind of like write the application out, and some other opportunities that you may not be aware of. So clinical experience, this is another way you can go. Some require training and certification, like being an EMT or an emergency medical technician. You could be a nursing assistant or a patient care tech. Other opportunities that don't require certification usually is scribing, or scribing, you can get like the online certification. There's medical assistant certification is recommended, but it's not always required. I think it's very dependent on what clinic or urgent care you're at. And there's shadowing clinical volunteering. And research. Research is a huge component if you want to delve into that deeper within your gap year. There's a bunch of fantastic opportunities to gain hands-on experience and expand your skills. You can be a clinical research coordinator where you are allowed, or you can work directly with patients and research teams to have that exposure to clinical trials and translational medicine. There's the NIH, or the National Institute of Health, IRTA program, where you can engage in biomedical research at the NIH. There's the post-bac research education program, or PrEP, which is designed to prepare recent grads for doctoral studies through mentored research and academic training. The Fulbright Research Award, this is like a sector of Fulbright, so you don't have to do like the teaching like English or something like that. You can go into the research part, which supports independent research projects abroad, offering a chance to explore global health or other areas of interest. And lastly, a research assistant in academic or clinical settings, which can be flexible and diverse experiences that can align to your long-term goals. A lot of these opportunities you can apply through Handshake, which is Emory's premier employment for undergraduates. There's directly contacting PIs. If you know someone throughout your undergrad, maybe you can contact them for the gap year research. And there's also specific program websites that you can find through the Office of Research and other venues. So as for work experience, there's obviously non-clinical positions. That would be a great way to save money, pay off debts, or save for future expenses. You can explore different interests, gain new skills. Some examples are consulting, there's data science and tech, education, and there's a lot more opportunities out there. It is a great opportunity to check out career fair. You'll be able to find maybe something that aligns in your path. And I just want to read this little excerpt from the last year's Gap Year panel. Do something unrelated to medicine, even while you're focused on your goal of becoming a physician or whatever path you're going towards. It's important to cultivate other interests and hobbies, whether it's something creative, athletic, relaxing, and or social. It's good to remember to take mental and physical breaks to recharge. It will be even more important once you start medical school or any school that you're applying to make sure you schedule time for things you enjoy. Okay, and lastly, we have PHA resources for those who are not familiar. We have a lot of ways to get information out to you. We have the PHA blog, which is updated very frequently. If you can't see, there's like the chili cook-off that was today. That's kind of like a little bonding thing within the PHA office. There's also a lot of opportunities to post on the blog, like summer research programs or anything that comes our way. We try to disseminate it to the undergraduate pre-health community. There's a PHA SharePoint, which is geared towards every year and whatever path, and you can like explore peer mentors that you may want to schedule time with, or the advisors if you want to have a one-on-one with them. And I just added a QR code to our Instagram. That's also a great way to connect with us. And the next portion is the questions.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Andrea, for telling us a little bit about just gap years in general. And then, as always, if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to come down to the PHA office. We'll be in the B. Jones Center, which is next to the Math and Science building. And you can ask any of us or the advisors just about more about taking a gap year as well. So now we're just going to start the Q&A session with the speakers that we've invited for today. And then whoever wants to take the question, just feel free to go ahead and we'll just have them up on the screen as well for you guys to reference. So the first question is, when did you realize you wanted to take a gap year and how did you come to that decision?
I guess I can kind of start off and share a little bit about my experiences. So hi again, everyone. My name is Emily. I'm, again, just currently pursuing an accelerated MPH at Rollins, but I am currently applying to medical schools as well. So kind of in my gap year right now. But I'd say like I decided to take a gap year when I kind of figured out when I was taking my MCAT actually. So during COVID, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, I took a year off to work, and coming back from that, I like very much learned that, you know what, I'm like on my own timeline. And like Dr. Wallenstein mentioned earlier, it's, you know, very much individualized. So for me, I was like, you know what, I'm on my own timeline and that's okay. So just really taking time to make sure that I, you know, was doing well in my classes and then making sure that I had enough time and resources like going into taking the MCAT. And so when I decided that I was taking the MCAT summer after junior year, I was like, okay, it'd be a little bit late for this cycle. And ideally, I try to maximize on applying early, being in an early batch, as people would call it. And so I say for me, it was summer after junior year. And really, it's just, you know, taking a step back to assess where I was in terms of classes and MCAT and the sport and resources I also had at hand.
Yeah, I can add on as well. So my name's Anusha. I'm currently taking one gap year, and I decided I wanted to take a gap year formally my junior year. I kind of I think, followed sort of the traditional path of taking prereqs and taking my MCAT junior year. But as I was studying for the MCAT and like would have had to write the composite letter if I wanted to apply next cycle, I started to think about what I really wanted. And in my senior year, I knew that there were things that I wanted to do at Emory that I didn't think would be possible if I was also applying. One of the biggest things was I wanted to do a summer study abroad, and it would have been the same time that I was applying to med school. So I knew that because I wanted to do that study abroad, I probably wouldn't want to apply then. I also just wanted that kind of first semester of senior year to kind of have that time to really delve in and like put my all into all my extracurriculars, pursue my honors thesis, which I was also able to start a little bit over the summer. And I just had these goals of things that I wanted to accomplish at Emory that I think really made me realize that I wanted to take that gap.
I'll also add to that as well. Hi, my name is Ryan. I actually graduated undergrad from Chapel Hill in 2019. I finished the MPH here at Emory from Rollins last year, and then I'm currently a second year med student here at Emory. So I'm a very like all over the place, very non-traditional person. So I took 4 gap years. And so the reason why, just because all throughout like my undergrad career, like I was comparing myself a lot to other people, and everyone was like, taking the MCAT during their junior year and everything, and they're getting all these clinical experiences. And so for me, I was interested in a lot of other things. And so I took all those classes. I also did a summer abroad as well. And so I really couldn't fit, I didn't really see like going straight into med school right after graduation, sort of like my timeline, because that's really what I wanted to do. And so I wanted to take more time to kind of explore. So after graduation, I actually worked in higher education. I actually worked at UNC Chapel Hill and just want to explore that field a little bit more. And then also that's when COVID kind of hit, and so everything was just kind of shut down. I didn't really know what to do, and I still was like healthcare's was still a really big part of my passions and my interests, and so I really want to get back into that. But then I had a lot of other friends who were really interested in were in global health and public health as well, and so I decided to go to my MPH first because I was always really interested in public health, and that's why Emory kind of drew in that's what drew me to Emory in Toronto. So I applied to the MPH first and then started that in 2021, finished that. And then ultimately, I was like, I really wanted to become a physician. And so I started exploring more, taking the MCAT again. I had all my prereqs already. And so it was just a matter of getting that clinical experience and being a part of Emory in that world, even after COVID really opened that door for me to get that experience because during COVID, everything was kind of shut down. I really couldn't get that experience. And so my journey was kind of all over the place, but I ultimately ended where I wanted to be. And I'm happy I'm here.
Yeah, I guess it's me now. Hi, I'm Shion. I'm also taking one gap year right now. Kind of similar to Emily and Anusha, I also kind of discovered that I wanted to do gap year my junior year, and it was the mix of trying to figure out when I was going to squeeze in my MCAT, as well as I was also very involved with different extracurriculars, and I really wanted to be able to invest my time into those, like during senior year and also just be able to enjoy my senior year as well, like the last year of college. And so I decided to take that gap year. I was originally very against taking a gap year because I wanted to just go straight into it and just kind of get over like with the amount of years of school that I would need to do for med school. But I think ultimately I realized like I just wanted to enjoy my time during college and also I was feeling very burnt out too with just like school and just different things that you have as like a college student. And so yeah, I took the gap year and I don't regret it at all. And so yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, I think the speakers had a lot of good insight, and I also just wanted to add one thing that a couple of them touched on. So, if you apply without a gap year, you would typically be applying the summer after your junior year. And so, if you do want to include your senior year of college in those experiences, it's a little bit easier to do that if you do take a gap year because then you can just add that extra year of stuff on when you are applying as well. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not that a gap year is just so that you can, like have extra time, it's also that like if you want to include that fourth year of college, then a gap year is typically necessary. And so for our next set of questions, it's just about how did you search for gap year opportunities?
I guess I can kind of just speak on to first. I guess the main thing was obviously the resources that the PHA office would offer. But I think also like talk. I think one big thing for me in finding opportunities was just having connections and like reaching out to people that I knew, like whether they be current med students or people already in their gap years, and like sort of figuring out what they did. And so for me, I'm working as a medical assistant right now, and that was through a connection of someone who had already worked at that place. And so I was able to like gain information from them and I'll be able to apply and like find this opportunity. I know a lot of other friends that I have in their gap years, whether it be doing like like being a research coordinator or whatever it may be, like talking to your PI or just other people who have like gone through that path and like asking what they did. I feel like connections is an important aspect. Of course, in addition to like just like applying online into like different like portals and stuff like that. But I think for me personally, reaching out to connections was an important piece of finding my gap year opportunity.
Yeah, I would definitely reiterate connections. So I actually was initially interested in healthcare consulting. And so kind of the summer before senior year, I started to kind of talk to friends who were in healthcare consulting and ask them about it. And that helped me a lot when I was applying because all my experiences had been really pre-med focused. And so I was trying to tap into this new world. And so getting guidance from other people was really helpful. I ended up not pursuing it because it's quite a lot of interviewing and work. But the opportunity that I do have actually, it was like a clinical research and public health position that was like I was encouraged to apply by a friend from Emory, who was a year above me, who was in the position. And it went really well because she was actually able to advocate for me in the application process. So I think that really facilitated me getting this opportunity.
Yeah. And I'll kind of add on to that. For me personally, I kind of like first assess like what experiences I had throughout like college. So I had done some like research, had some clinical experiences. So I was trying to look for like areas that I wanted to like grow more in. And so I really wanted to learn more of like a public health perspective and more of like a systems perspective that can affect patient care and outcomes. And so from there, just from my experiences volunteering at a clinic and also taking a grad course at Rollins my senior year, that just like really solidified it for me fall of senior year. And from there, I, similar to what Shion had mentioned with like connections, um, knew a couple of people that had completed the 1 year program at Rollins in healthcare management specifically, but I believe there's another 1 year program that just started this year in global health. So I like reach out to them a lot, like truly cannot be more grateful for their guidance throughout the whole process of just like what to expect from the applications, what classes were like at Rollins, things like that. And so just reaching out to a couple of people that I knew who had completed the program as well. And then from there, just trying to see what other schools and what schools to apply to, what the timeline was, which I can share more if anyone has any questions. But yeah.
I'll pretty much echo everything everyone said. All the networks, the connections. When I was in Rollins and I was applying to med school as well, I really wanted more clinical experience, but also like research experience as well. So I wanted to bridge those two together. So I actually found my lab position through like a career fair, and so it was like an online career fair. And so I was just talking to this PI, and it was a new lab coming in. And so ultimately it worked out in my favor just because they were starting up this new lab and it was more engagement in the hospital setting. And so just seeing what's out there, like be open-minded and using all the resources, all the databases, pretty much everyone around you. and like utilize those career fairs and those resources that the office has and everyone around you too.
Yeah, and then the one thing that I wanted to add as well is Emory's Career Center. I know they do a lot of opportunities with just like connecting people to internships and things like that. So if you do want to go into path that might be a little unrelated to what you've been doing in undergrad, I would say that's another great resource to reach out to. And they can kind of help connect you to alumni or just other people in general that might be able to help you establish those connections as well. And then our next question is, when did you have your gap year plans finalized by?
So for me, I think I was very anxious, I think, when it came to my gap year plan because I felt like a lot of people had like things figured out before graduation, like around March and stuff. But truly like everyone like is on their own path. So like first, like don't like stress or worry too much. Like if you don't have anything, like by the end of fall or even the beginning of spring semester. Like it's like truly like I have friends who are also in their gap years right now, who like just got a job and like, are now like starting like research or working as a scribe or whatever it may be. So like don't compare and just like you're on your own like path. For me, I actually didn't like solidify until like a few days before graduation. So like it was in May. And so for me, I was kind of like trying to figure things out because I was like, do I stay in Atlanta or do I go back home? Like, where am I gonna go? But truly, I think that like things will work out and like so like don't stress too much about like timeline wise. But yeah, so for me, it was I guess maybe later, sort of than when people have things figured out. But I think it really just depends on like each person and like what they want to do. So that was my experience.
Yeah, totally agree. I had mine finalized by mid-February, but that was definitely on the earlier side. I think a really good point is that senior year, you're friends with a lot of people who are probably not in healthcare, who might be doing like business or CS, and those application timelines are can be like a lot earlier. But for example, a lot of like healthcare positions, like if you're looking at research, clinical research, scribing, or MA positions, those tend to fall a lot later. So it's really important not to like stress yourself out. I will say that I, even though I finalized mine in mid-February, I very much knew people who they didn't submit job applications until the day after they graduated and they had a job for the summer. So they were all set. I think in hindsight, sometimes it's might be even a little nicer to kind of finalize it a little later because that means maybe you won't start right in the beginning of summer when you might be applying. You might be starting in September, which works out really great with the application cycle timeline. But it all depends.
For me personally, I finalized my plans around, I think it was March, April-ish. But because there was a question in the chat regarding the Accelerate MPH, depending on like scholarship considerations, things like that, the timeline may be a little bit earlier. So for one program that I applied to, their deadline was for scholarship consideration was in November, like end of November. So it's around this time, whereas like Emory's, like Rollins application deadline for priority scholarship consideration is in January. So it kind of varies a little bit by school. But I heard back from one program in like December, but depending on like Rollins and like what funding I was getting, I didn't hear back from Rollins until like, I think it was mid-February, late February. And then added on top of that, there were some like FAFSA delays. So they kind of extended when you needed to commit. So I think I finalized it around March, April. But a lot of the programs, if you aren't looking to apply for like scholarship consideration, I think a lot of the deadlines aren't until like March or April. They're a little bit later. So it kind of really varies by school, but springtime is when I kind of finalize my plans.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. Spring was around when I solidified my first gap year, like February, March. I applied to the jobs that I wanted to in the higher education. And I started, I think, a few weeks after graduation in May. So I started like mid-June. And so that was a really good time because I still had some time off before I started the job. And so also everyone, echoing everyone else said too, everyone's on their own path, everyone's on their own journey. And so it's really easy to get bogged down by someone else right next to you who's doing the same thing, but also doing something very different. Like, should you be doing that as well? Should you not be doing that? So just like take it step by step, figure out what you want to do because the gap year is pretty much your time, what you want to do and explore. And so everyone's on their own path. And yeah, it like take the time that you need to. You don't have to feel rushed into trying to get this job right off the bat, right after graduation. Take some time, figure everything out, and you'll be set.
And then the next question is, do you have to do something pre-health related during your gap year?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think definitely not. Like you can do truly whatever like you want to do. Because again, like everyone was saying, like this is like your year, like before going into med school or like or years, before like whatever you want to do. I think truly like I think the biggest thing is like truly do something that you're interested in, that you're going to enjoy. This kind of like your time that you have before being in many years of school. And so I think it's really important to, I think, just do something that you enjoy or just want to explore. I have friends who are working like at a coffee shop, like as a barista. I have people, like friends who are also doing like a master's program or so I have someone who's like working as like a lifeguard right now like at a like one of their local like gyms. And so I think truly it's just whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be pre-health related. And I think that even from like doing something that's non pre-health related, I think you can still have valuable things you could talk about during interviews as well. If like, people ask you like, oh, what are you doing during your gap year? So yeah, that's yeah, my take on it, which I'm sure everyone else like kind of agrees with as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
the
just
only
adding,
thing I
oh wait, no, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, the only thing that like I would say is that like definitely I was looking into like healthcare consulting before and I think it's might just be like helpful to have something clinical going on if you decide to do something totally not pre-health, especially if you're taking more than one gap year, like two, three gap years, might be helpful to just maybe do some like weekend volunteering or weekend shadowing, like nothing serious, but something that still shows you're kind of interested in clinical or like in whatever pre-health path that you choose.
Yeah, and I was just going to add on like a real world example, I guess. So I mentioned that I'm pre-dental, and with one of the dentists that I'd been shadowing, she's now an orthodontist. She's like very successful in everything. But she actually worked as a ski instructor after her college years. And so, like, again, going off of that, you can have a very untraditional gap year and still like get into great programs and be very, like successful in your future career. Um, so just don't be afraid to try to explore like your different passions that you may have. And you also can sometimes come out of these gap years with like really interesting stories to tell that just like admissions committees might like to hear or like just be interested in general. So I think it's important to also recognize that gap years can give you something to talk about as well during interviews or just admissions as well. And then the next question is, what personal qualities or skills did you develop during your gap year, and which ones are necessary to succeed?
I think tackle the first question first. So for my program, a lot of it is more kind of on like a more like businessy side, I would say, which is something that I didn't have that much exposure to in undergrad as a bio major. So just really learning like accounting skills, like econ concepts that like can be taken into account and like policies, things like that. That's something that I'd say I've been developing throughout this like semester so far, and also just like quantitative like data analysis skills. So at least at Rollins, you'll take like core classes in each of the departments. And so just, taking classes in like biostats and like epidemiology as well. Those are some classes that I didn't quite get a chance to take in undergrad. So those are some skills there. And I'd say for which ones are necessary to succeed, I mean, TBD, but I think overall, just like going in with like an open mind, a willingness to like learn and grow, and also like collaborate with others, to be able to have those like open conversations and really learn from different people's experiences is especially, I think, important. What I've noticed so far being at Rollins is just there are a lot of discussions and people with different backgrounds and experiences and skills, and it's obviously a very collaborative field to be in healthcare. So I think having those skills or things in mind at least come to my mind at least.
Yeah, I'll talk into what Emily said too, because like what I learned from Rollins as well, it's like public health is very collaborative. You're working in teams almost every single time, every single project. And so I think for me in undergrad, I was kind of like in this like space. I was like floating around, didn't really know what to do because you're pretty much you're growing. Like from ages of 18 to 22, you're still trying to figure out who you are, trying to develop like who you are as a person, but also as a professional. And so in my gap years as well, and my time at Rollins, I really figured out like who I wanted to be, what my name will be, my reputation. It's like um even all those hard skills, like yes, I learned like all those computing skills and epidemiology and all the coding and all that, but soft skills are just as important, if not more important. And so it's like how to treat others with kindness and open-mindedness and like professional communication, and you're growing as you're learning. And so that is really, really important. And what I was the big key takeaway from my gap years, because like you're having all this real world experiences away from the classroom. And so you're learning stuff not in the classroom. You're learning how to, you're pretty much figure out who you are in the real world. And so that's really, really valuable to bring back into whatever professional setting or program or curriculum you're applying it to, because ultimately that's going to make you that much better as an individual in whatever field you're going into.
Yep, and I think that was our last question. So for those of you who might have joined late, this is our attendance form. So please make sure to just fill this out so that we know that you've attended. And then I will give you guys a minute to just take that.
Thank you once again to the panelists. Your participation means a lot to us, and thank you.
Yeah, and then if anyone has any questions, feel free to just unmute and ask your question or type it in the chat and we can read it out loud as well. Okay, well, if there are no questions, do you panelists have any last words, or Dr. Wallenstein, do you have any last words?
No one I know who took a gap year regretted it, but there were some people who I did talk to who didn't take a gap year who did regret it. And there were people who didn't take a gap year who are very happy that I know. But that was definitely like something that I considered going into taking my gap year.
So we do have a
Do you,
question.
Elias?
If someone wants to go ahead and answer, when did you start looking for work, volunteer opportunities for your gap year?
Yeah, I guess I can answer that. I think I didn't start looking genuinely until like the spring semester, or actually midway into like fall semester of senior year. I think is whenever I started think about, and I think like beginning of like spring semesters whenever I was like actively like applying and like looking for stuff. But again, I think everyone's like timeline is a little different. Some people may look earlier or later or around that time. But that was sort of whenever I was kind of searching for stuff.
Yeah, I'll second that also. It's just really starting to look into what schools offer like an accelerated program. I think I started, I want to say, actually, I pulled up the dates because I was like, let me try to figure it out. It was like late August, early September. And for me personally, I was coming straight out from like undergrad, and some accelerated programs, they require that you have like 2 or 3 years of work experience post back. And so I wanted to make sure one, that I would be eligible to apply if I did apply, and then two, what schools offered an accelerated program, and then three, what would be like the earliest deadline for priority like scholarship consideration. And so with all that in mind, I think the earliest deadline again was just throw it out there, but Dartmouth's was like due end of November. So I was like, okay, I need to get my like letters of recommendations like now. So I reached out to like my letters of rec in like late October, and then started submitting my general application in late November to give a little timeline on that.
Yeah, I really looked December break. I didn't have much going on, so that's when I was kind of like looking for a bunch of jobs like on Handshake, Indeed, and like reaching out to people, looking at the PHA like blog post for job opportunities. I think that was really when I started looking.
Okay then. Does anyone have any last minute questions? Nope. Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you again. Oh, yeah, Emily, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to know, I'm happy to also send my email in there if anyone has any questions. I know a lot of people already hopped off the Zoom, but if anyone has any other questions, or if you want, I don't know if there was like a follow-up email too, I'm happy to answer any more questions there.
Yep. So we just wanted to say thank you again to all the speakers for coming out. We really appreciate your advice, and we know it'll be pretty valuable to the students as they continue to decide to pursue their gap years or pursue their gap years as well.